Welcome back to the podcast, Philippe. Everybody loves a good story. And this one, well,
Yeah.
it's a real doozy. We're going deep into what's being called the exodus. Yeah,
Mm.
the mass exodus of users from, what used to be Twitter.
Yeah, it's quite the story, and it goes way deeper than just, the headlines.
Right, exactly. So buckle up, folks, because we're diving into the why, the where, and the what the heck does this all mean for the future of, hanging out online.
And trust me, it's not just about politics as you might think. There's a lot more to unpack here.
So let's start with hard facts. X has lost a big chunk of its users,
Mm.
like a 30% drop just in the past year alone, from 70 million users down to 55 million.
And that's not even the whole picture. The number of daily active users, those who are on Xnet, like every single day, that's down a whopping 19 million since October 2022.
Wow, those numbers are pretty hard to ignore, and it all seems to line up with, a bunch of changes since Elon Musk took over.
Right, lots of controversial stuff. That's definitely shaking things up.
Okay, so let's break it down. First, you got the whole rebranding thing from Twitter to X. I mean, that really rubs some people the wrong way, like erasing history,
Yeah, it definitely alienated a lot of longtime users who felt like they lost something familiar.
Then you've got the whole content moderation thing, which, let's be honest, got pretty messy.
There was a sense that the platform was becoming less safe, more negative, more misinformation flying around.
Like the wild west of social media.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can't forget about the paid subscriptions and the whole verification checkmark debacle.
Yeah, a lot of users saw that as putting profits ahead of the user experience,
For sure. Now,
Mhm.
it's tempting to just blame all this on Elon Musk and his politics. And yeah, that's definitely a factor for some.
But the data actually tells a more complicated story. It goes beyond just politics.
You're right. A lot of users are saying they're fed up with the spread of misinformation, the rise of toxic content,
Yeah.
and that whole feeling like algorithms are manipulating their experience.
It's like a sense of disillusionment with online discourse in general. People are looking for something better.
Yeah, and that's where all these alternative platforms come in, right?
Yeah.
We've got Bluesky, founded by Twitter's original CEO, Jack Dorsey,
Mm-hmm.
and it's exploding, like almost 1 million new users every day.
It's crazy. And then there's Threads Meta's offering, and it already has a massive user base.
Oh, and let's not forget Mastodon,
Oh.
which is steadily gaining traction, too.
What's really fascinating is how each of these platforms is attracting a slightly different type of user.
Right, like Bluesky with its familiar interface and focus on civil discourse, that seems to be pulling in people who miss the old Twitter.
Exactly. And then Threads with its visual focus and connection to Instagram is attracting a different crowd altogether.
And Mastodon, with its decentralized structure, it appeals to people who want more control over their online experience,
It seems like users are really searching for platforms that align with their specific values and priorities when it comes to interacting online.
Yeah, they've had enough, and they're ready to vote with their feet, find something that actually works for them. It's a huge wake-up call for businesses, too. They're scrambling to adapt to this new landscape,
For sure. They can't just rely on X anymore. They have to diversify.
Right. It's all about a multi-platform strategy now, reaching audiences wherever they are.
We're seeing a lot of experimentation with Bluesky, Threads, Mastodon, seeing what sticks.
And get this, a recent study showed that 26% of marketing executives plan to slash their X ad budgets by 2025.
Wow, that's a big deal. Shows you how much confidence has eroded,
It's a tough spot for companies, though, because X still has a lot of clout, especially among journalists and thought leaders.
Right, they can't completely abandon it. They also can't ignore the fact that users are fleeing.
It's a balancing act, for sure.
They need to be where their audience is. And right now, that audience is spread out all over the place.
This brings us to a really pivotal moment in this whole Exodus thing, the Hello Quit X campaign, back in January.
Right, January 20th, to be exact. A national unsubscribe campaign. And it wasn't just individuals leaving.
Yeah, we saw institutions, festivals, organizations all joining the movement.
It was a coordinated effort to send a message, like, we don't trust X anymore.
And the numbers are pretty staggering. Hundreds of thousands of people left the platform, 115,000 deactivated accounts in the U.S. alone.
And significant declines across most of Europe. It was a real show of force.
This campaign really tapped into something deeper, I think. A growing distrust, not just in X, but in the whole online ecosystem.
For sure. The sources we've looked at point to a real sense of disillusionment with the state of online discourse in general.
Yeah, people are tired of the misinformation, the toxicity, the feeling of being manipulated by algorithms.
It's like people are yearning for something more authentic, more meaningful. less controlled.
It's interesting because this exodus from X, it raises some really big questions about the future of social media.
Like, is this just a temporary blip, or are we witnessing a fundamental shift in how we interact online?
Will X be able to adapt and survive? Or will it just fade into irrelevance?
And what about these alternative platforms? Will they be able to fill the void, or are they just temporary havens for disgruntled X users?
It's hard to say for sure, but one thing's for certain, this whole exodus, it's a sign that things are changing.
Users are becoming more discerning, more aware of their options, and more willing to take action.
They're not just passive consumers anymore, they're active participants, shaping the digital landscape.
And that's a really powerful thing.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Well, we've seen a platform lose a third of its users in a year. We've seen the rise of new platforms offering different ways to connect and communicate.
We've explored the motivations behind this shift, from dissatisfaction with platform policies to deeper societal anxieties about the way we talk to each other online.
And it's not just about technology or user behavior, it's about us, how we connect, communicate, and shape the digital spaces we inhabit.
Yeah, it really makes you think, like, where do we go from here? Is this just a passing trend, or is this like a fundamental shift?
Right, is this the beginning of something totally new?
I mean, it's like we're seeing this power struggle between the old guard like X and these up-and-comers like Mastodon.
And each one represents a different vision for how social media should work.
Exactly. With Mastodon, it's all about decentralization, giving users more control over their data and the content they see.
Which I think speaks to this growing desire for transparency that we keep hearing about, you know?
For sure. But it's not like X is going away anytime soon. I mean, it's still a major force.
It's true. There's still a lot of important stuff happening there, like news breaks, conversations with journalists and influencers.
So it puts companies in a tough spot,
Right.
right? They can't just ignore X, but they also have to recognize that the landscape is changing.
It's a real tightrope walk, trying to figure out where to put their energy and resources.
That's like they need to become experts in social media anthropology or something.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Like, trying to understand the motivations and desires of all these different online tribes.
Because if you look beyond the surface level complaints, it's like there's this deeper longing for something more authentic, more meaningful.
Yeah, like a real connection instead of just being bombarded with ads and algorithms.
Right. Like people are craving a digital detox, you know, a return to the early days of the internet when things felt more organic.
I think that's a big part of the appeal of these alternative platforms. Like, they offer a different kind of experience.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, is it even possible to go back to that kind of simplicity in today's hyper-connected world?
It's a good question, and I honestly don't know the answer. But I do think that this desire for authenticity, for genuine connection, it's something that platforms will have to grapple with.
If they want to stay relevant, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So where does this leave us? What does the future hold for social media?
I think we're at a turning point, the exodus. It's a sign that the old ways of doing things, they're not working anymore.
Users are waking up. They're realizing that they have a choice, and they're not afraid to exercise it.
Exactly. They're demanding more control, more transparency, more authenticity.
And that's a really powerful thing. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the exodus, we want to leave you with this thought.
Don't be afraid to explore, to experiment, to find the online spaces that work for you.
The future of social media, it's not predetermined. It's being shaped right now by all of us.
So go out there and find your tribe. Connect with people who share your values and help create the digital world you want to see.
That's it for our deep dive into the exodus. We hope you found it informative and maybe even a little inspiring.
Remember, the power is in your hands. Choose wisely, connect meaningfully, and keep exploring.